The most powerful people almost never explain themselves. Not because they can't, because explanation is how you lose. Status isn't given. It's assumed, and the moment you defend it, justify it, or explain it, you've already handed it away. This isn't about arrogance, it's about understanding a basic truth most people never see. In rooms where real power sits, certain things are never said out loud. Not because they're secrets, because saying them would be the mistake. There are 7 behaviours wealthy people avoid explaining, not to be mysterious, but because the explanation itself would cost them more than the misunderstanding ever could. They don't explain why they're unavailable. You'll never hear, "I'm too busy," or "I have back-to-back meetings." They'll say, "I'm not available then." That's it. No justification, no apology, no counteroffer to prove they care. Because the moment you explain your schedule, you're inviting negotiation. You're suggesting your time isn't inherently valuable, it's just currently occupied. Old wealth understands this instinctively. Your time isn't scarce because you're busy. It's scarce because it's yours. The difference is subtle. But it's the difference between someone who manages their calendar and someone whose calendar manages them. New money will tell you about the 15 things they have to do today. Old money will simply not be there. They don't explain their choices, especially the ones that seem counterintuitive. When someone with generational wealth passes on an investment, they don't list the reasons, they don't build a case, they don't justify the no, they just move on. Because every explanation is an invitation to be convinced otherwise. And the truly wealthy know something most people don't. The right decision doesn't need a defense. If you're in a room and someone asks why you're not doing something everyone else is doing, investing in a trend, attending an event, adopting a strategy, the instinct is to explain. That instinct is the problem. The explanation says, "I'm aware I'm different, and I need you to understand why." The powerful don't need you to understand. They've already decided, and the decision isn't up for review. They don't explain who they know, or how they know them. You'll never hear, "Oh, I went to school with him," or "We go way back," or "He's a family friend." They'll just make a call, or not make one, because access isn't something you explain, it's something you have. The moment you justify your proximity to power, you've positioned yourself outside of it. Real relationships at that level aren't credentials. They're not name drops. They're not networking wins you recap at dinner. They're just how things work. And the people inside that world never explain it to the people outside. Not because they're gatekeeping, because the gate doesn't need a sign. They don't explain how much they have, or how they got it. This is the most obvious one, but it's still worth noting, because the instinct to contextualize wealth is almost universal. New money will mention the deal, the exit, the big win. Old money won't even acknowledge the question. Not because they're humble, but because wealth isn't a story to them. It's a fact. And facts don't need narratives. If someone asks how they can afford something, the answer isn't a breakdown of assets or income streams. The answer is silence, or a redirect. Because the question itself assumes wealth is unusual, and in the rooms they're in, it's not. They don't explain their taste. If they only wear one brand of shirt, one style of shoe, one type of watch, they don't tell you why. They don't educate you on craftsmanship or heritage or why it matters. They just wear it. Because taste, at that level, isn't a choice you defend. It's a standard you maintain. The moment you explain why you prefer something, you've made it optional. You've suggested there's a version of you that could be convinced otherwise. There isn't. And they know that explaining taste is what people do when they're trying to justify spending money they feel guilty about. Guilt isn't part of the equation. Neither is explanation. They don't explain why they're not there. If they skip an event, a meeting, a dinner, you won't get a reason. You'll get a no or an assistant's polite decline. That's all. Because the wealthy understand that explaining your absence suggests you owe someone your presence. You don't. The people who matter already know you're selective. The people who don't matter aren't owed an explanation. And the difference between the two is that the first group never asks. If someone demands to know why you weren't somewhere, the explanation won't satisfy them anyway. Because what they're really asking is, why wasn't I important enough? And that's not a question you can answer without lowering yourself. They don't explain the rules, not the legal ones, the unspoken ones. How invitations work, how introductions happen, how things are done. If you're in the room, you already know. If you're not, the explanation won't help. This is the final filter, because the people who need the rules explained aren't the people the rules were made for. It's not cruelty, It's just structure, and structure doesn't announce itself. You either see it or you don't. The powerful never explain the system, because the system isn't for everyone. And everyone already knows that. Explanation is generosity. But at a certain level, generosity is expensive. Not in money, in positioning. The moment you start explaining yourself, you've admitted you're accountable to someone else's understanding. You're not. Most people will never learn this. They'll keep justifying their time, defending their choices, contextualizing their wealth, educating people on their standards. And they'll wonder why it never feels like enough. Because it's not about what you have, it's about what you don't say. If you understand what was said here, you're already in a different room than most people. More observations from that room are coming. Subscribe if you want them.